Welcome to Overcaffeinated and Out of Effs, the podcast for burned out, career-minded moms who are ready to stop pretending everything's fine and feel like themselves again. I'm your host, Christy Gamir, burnout coach for moms, licensed therapist, and mom of two. And I'm here to help you reclaim your energy, your identity, and your peace of mind. Whether you're lying awake thinking about the 87 things you didn't get done, or silently resenting the people you love most, this is your space to feel seen, supported, and not so alone. So grab your coffee, hot, cold, or day old, and let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Christy. Welcome to Overcaffeinated and Out of Effs. In today's episode, I'd like to welcome our guest, Margaret Solorio. Margaret is an intuitive guide, energy mentor, and author of Make Ease Your Vibe. She's the creator of the Home Frequency Reset, a transformative approach that helps people clear energetic clutter and realign their spaces to support clarity, ease, and personal growth. Through her podcast, Intuitive Wisdom, her one-on-one work, and her teachings on energy and environment, Margaret blends grounded spiritual insight with practical energy work, helping conscious individuals understand how their surroundings directly influence their emotions, choices, and sense of self. Her mission is to help people feel energetically at home, both in their physical spaces and within themselves. So I've invited Margaret here today. She's going to share a little bit about her own personal story and to also share a bit about her work as an energy healer, how this work can help career-minded moms to prevent and overcome burnout. So, Margaret, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited about our conversation. Can you maybe start by just telling us a little bit more about yourself and the season of motherhood that you're in right now?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I help clear and reset energy in people's homes. I work remotely, so I don't actually see the home, unlike typical house clearings. This isn't about a deep cleaning. This is really focusing on the energy, lifting that weight, clearing it out, and allowing that space to feel calm and supportive again. I have two kiddos, age 9 and 11. So we are in the sports season of apparently kids, where everybody has games multiple times a week. And we're learning how to stretch our days and make dinner anyway. So It's good, but it's very busy.
Yes, no, I understand. I have a 10-year-old, so I completely understand that season of life. Okay, so when you and I had connected earlier, you had shared with me that COVID was really, a very difficult time for you. So I was really hoping to kind of go back just to get a better idea, a better understanding of your own personal burnout story, how you managed to overcome that, what that was really like for you. That was obviously, COVID was a very stressful time for a lot of people. And you had said that that's when you hit your breaking point as a burned out working mom. So with that in mind, can you maybe just share a little bit about what that time was in fact like for you and what was happening, at work and at home?
Yeah, I had a full-time 40-hour-a-week job and a husband and kids, a house, the whole thing. And before COVID, of course, we were all tied to the location. So that's just so demanding to do drop-off, even when the kids are very little, and do the whole day and then try to figure out the rest of all your responsibilities. So I was probably barely holding it together. I remember crying every day at about 8 a.m. on the way to work once I'd gotten the first round of rush stuff done. And it really felt like a horizontal marathon each day. Like I would get up and before I even got up, I remember I would wake up and I would feel like I was putting this armor on, not literally, metaphorically, but it was like me against time. Like, okay, let's see who's going to win and my family's going to be okay, safe and happy. It's me against time. I got a bunch of stuff to do. So it felt like a race and a fight every day. And then when COVID hit and we were all home, and I still laugh at myself because I sometimes make goals every year for myself. And that year I had made a goal to volunteer more in my daughter's class because, that's what good moms do. And I wanted to be better about that. And then, of course, school was at home and I was volunteering every day running school. So the universe got me on that one. Um, but it just felt like that horizontal marathon was flipped on its side and now it was vertical. And everybody needed everything from me all at the same time. And it was too much. That's kind of what broke it for me. And I couldn't keep up. My strategies for getting through the day did not work. So
Yeah.
for me, that looked like kind of like a mental breakdown every month for probably 5 months before I gave up. I just had to take a mental health day once a month and it felt like I just dropped out of a moving car. Like I didn't have any way to cope. I didn't have any way to keep everything going. It was scary. COVID was very scary and my doctor called later that first summer and said, "Oh, you're on our high risk list." And I was like, "What?
Oh my gosh.
How
Okay.
dare you?" I have asthma. But I was like, for me personally, it kind of felt like, how dare you? Like, I worked so hard and now I obviously didn't die, but I was like, now I'm on the high risk list. I'm going to die. And then I'm going to just die with a bunch of regret because I've put all this stock in all the things I've been told would make me happy. I haven't reached happy and everybody else is stressed too. Like, what gives?
Mhm.
So I knew other people were happy. I knew there must be a way to be peaceful. The world was nuts. So there's not like I could change the outside world, which had always been kind of the tactic before. Let me change the circumstances and it will be okay. So I
Mhm.
really had to turn in. And that's when I started listening to more podcasts. Podcasts like yours are wonderful and very supportive. And this
Oh.
just gave me clues. And I think I started to meditate. And then the first time I meditated, I set a timer for 1 minute. I did it right after my day job before I headed into my home chores and work and kiddos. And it was so hard to sit with my thoughts for 1 minute. It was painful.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And then I just extended that and I kept going. And if you make it up to 15 or 20 minutes a day, I don't think you really need more than that. And I've
Mhm.
meditated daily now for years. And it was some point during that journey where I just listened. I found that calmness. I could figure out more things were possible. There were more little doors opening. Like after I put the kids to bed, I would read for 5 minutes. I really love reading, and I used to not read because who has time for that? And
Right.
I thought, okay, I'll just read for 5 minutes. I'll set the timer. And then once I was doing that consistently, I was like, wait a second. The door is open. If I can do things. And that refreshed my energy and bring me joy. And that's when I dove into the personal development, the mindset, the energy, and the time management work. That was a lot for me too.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And then, so, as I was listening to you talk, because with burnout, there are some common themes, some common symptoms that a lot of people experience. The way you had described it, you mentioned, having this, feeling like you're going to have this mental breakdown. So it sounds like you were very aware of how you were struggling.
Mhm.
It sounds like it was just kind of right there in your face, like every day. I'm curious, like, what were some of maybe the more subtle sounds looking back that maybe you didn't recognize at first that, before you got to that point of I'm feeling like
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a mental breakdown?
Well, coming from what I know now and how I help people now, it's really important to care about how you feel. So I used to consider emotions annoying and not helpful and get in the way kind of stuff. And now I understand. So I think of spirit, universe, God, however you want to call them, is energy. And so these messages that we get for ourselves from our intuition, from your higher self, however you want to call that, are energetic. And those are expressed through emotions. Emotions are energy in motion. So the emotion is not there to harm you or to get in your way or slow you down. The emotion is there to give you a sign, give you a clue. Something's off, something's great, something's what's working for you. So if I had known that, I think I would have been a lot kinder to myself. I would have gotten those clues and those heads up earlier, and I would have also given value to the people I love and that are around me.
Mhm.
Um, those were not valued when I was growing up, so it was really easy to just push them away and focus on the what needed to get done, the doing. But
Mhm.
life is what we experience, and, I like to say, time is squishy, like, it how you experience the time is what matters. You know, sometimes if you have a beautiful dinner where you get to savor and kind of relax into it, it might only be an hour long, but it might feel like 3 hours long because it kind of just floated and went. Or if you're doing something excruciating and doing a wall sit in your gym workout, a 1 minute, geez, takes forever. So,
Mhm.
there's that the perception of the experience, the activity, the emotion that's involved is really how we get to enjoy and perceive that time. So, um, realizing that taking time to acknowledge the emotions or listen to them is actually an awesome investment in your next experience in your life. That probably those would have been the clues.
Well, and as you talk about, this squishing time, right? So, I've never heard anybody refer to it that way before, but one of the things, one of the things that I often say to people, when I'm talking about time is, this idea that we all have the same amount of time. We all have the same
Yes.
24 hours in a day. And, when we put one thing in, we don't have time for something else. And so we have to prioritize. But this other piece I also talk about is this idea that not all time is necessarily going to be exactly the same, right? Because
Mm-mm.
some things are going to take, more of our energy, more effort, more work. Like it's just, there are some things that we can do much more easily with that time than with other things. And so when you talk about squishing time, it sounds like that's essentially what you're describing, right? Our experiences of that time, if it's much more challenging and much more stressful and things like that, it's going to be a very different use than if it's something that's enjoyable and, fulfilling and rejuvenating and things like that. And so, that's also going to affect, like the things that you're doing is also going to affect what other things you're maybe allowed to fit into your day. Is
Yeah,
that is that
I
right?
think I think that's one of 2 pieces, so I definitely agree. I read the book, Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap. I don't know if you've read that. He has a concept in there called Einstein time, and that's really started it for me of this idea of that cosmic order that you put out. If you say, "I don't have enough," this used to be me every morning. "I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time," then the universe kind of conspires to help you get what you are declaring, and you have all these
Mhm.
extra things and somebody spills this and you have to change that and on top of your regular. Whereas if you say, "Oh, I have more than enough time for everything," and you kind of just go through the routine, you end up early where you were meant to go, even though you didn't really mean to. It kind of flows. So that what you're talking about, getting into that flow definitely really helps. I think the other piece is really truly believing that anything is possible for you. I think a lot of times we preach that. We say to our kids, anything is possible, but then we don't really believe it and we put all these conditions on everything. That used to be
Mhm.
me. I've worked really hard to believe it. But I think to that extent, we've also been very conditioned around time, even starting at school. Like, you are productive if you are here from this time to this time. And then we get hourly jobs and it doesn't really matter what you produce. It matters you are sitting in the chair or you are doing this from this time to this time. So it's a very the value of time is in the hours and not the productivity. So if you can flip that, I learned that lesson really big when I wrote my first book, Make Easier Vibe. A lot of the stories, oh, write a book, go to Bali for, 2 to 4 weeks without your family and really focus and get it all out like a creative. And I was like, well, that's not really feasible right now. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a timer every day after dinner, 15 minutes. I'm just going to write and see how far I get. In 6 weeks, I had the first draft done. So
Wow.
it was really taught me, okay, this is what I was told would take to write a book. That's not really
Mhm.
what it needed. It needed a little focused effort. It was okay. Balls were flying behind me and people were doing stuff. I just had my 15 minutes after dinner, end of story. And I committed to that. So that's what worked for me. So I think a lot of times we have this expectation, oh, it's going to take me an hour to get to work. Well, what if it took half? Is that
Yeah.
possible? Yeah, it is possible. But if you don't allow for that possibility in your world, or, maybe cooking dinner is always such a chore that takes forever. I think, "Oh, I need at least an hour to do this." Well, do you? Maybe, but maybe somebody will help you a little bit today, or maybe you try this thing and it's easier, or maybe I already bought pre-chopped there's always some way to make it different, and I think that conditioning of it has to be this way in order for it to happen, letting that
Mhm.
loosen a little bit allows for the opportunity for that time to be squishy and to things to happen at a rate that's better than expected.
Well, and I'm also wondering, out of curiosity, what do you say to people when maybe the reverse is true? You sort of have in your head, okay, it's going to take me about this much time to say, do the dishes. And when you get to that point, maybe you're still doing some dishes. Are you basically encouraging them to just sort of stop at that point and move on with the other things that they have for their day? Or is it more just sort of this flexibility of, okay, that takes the amount of time that it takes, and then we'll adjust and adapt and, go from there?
I think that's hard because everyone's different.
Yeah.
So that really goes back to caring about how you feel. I'm a morning person, so if I some days after dinner, I have great energy to do dishes, but some days it's just not there, and if I do it after dinner, it takes me half an hour to an hour. If I do it in the morning when I get up, it takes me 15 to 20 minutes, and I
Uh-huh.
know that's how my energy flows, so I get over myself that the kitchen might be dirty when I go to bed, and I just do it in the morning. So giving yourself that forgiveness and leadway and tuning into what works for you, kind of connecting to that flow and harnessing that energy, managing your energy so you can ride the good wave, so to speak, that really helps.
Mhm. So when you say leading with your energy, so it sounds like essentially what you're saying is to sort of pay attention to and be in tune with how you're feeling, and
Yeah.
then use that to sort of adjust your day, adjust your routine in a way that works for you. But it sounds like part of that work is really um, paying attention to and understanding what your energy essentially looks like. Is that right?
Yes. So the first part is just awareness, paying attention to how you feel. And we talk about that too in your environment now that I work on homes and less directly with people. So noticing, when you walk into your space, how that feels. Or if you, if you have we all did do at some point have like a sticky drawer in the kitchen that's tough to open or close and that makes you frustrated. That's an energetic weight. Then you kind of frustration rolls into the next thing, into the next thing. So where are the little shifts that you can, like a small investment with a big return? What's a little thing you can do to help yourself and help all those around you? Because kindness and that good energy ripples out. Um, that can make everything else flow and everything else easier. Maybe it is taking 10 minutes to oil the drawer, and then every time you use it, you're like, ha, look what I did. I'm so proud of myself. And then that good energy follows to the next task.
Okay, okay. Now, I'm wondering, so for me personally, when I was younger growing up, I never really heard people talking about this energy work, but more recently, I feel like I'm hearing people talk about it quite a bit, right? It seems like it's becoming more and more popular, just more and more people are really, like, leaning into this. Um, for those, though, who might be skeptical, who really haven't either they don't understand it or, they've just, been feeling that skepticism. I'm curious, like, what do you say to them? How do you help them really understand the value and how it can be a beneficial thing for them?
Yeah, I think you're right. It is hard because it's invisible. We don't really see it. So it goes back to caring about how you feel. And so we are all energy. Our souls are energy. We're energy having this human physical experience. And actually everything else is energy. I was a trained scientist before I got into energy work. And if you look at everything down at a molecular level, those atoms are moving. They're even the solid table, right? The atoms are slowly moving. So everything is energy. And energy uh, has this energy bodies kind of have this residue, kind of like dust builds up naturally over time. Energetic dust kind of builds up in your home naturally over time. So I kind of give extreme examples to orient people. If you would think about going into a house that hadn't been lived in a while and was really dark and damp and heavy, there's this heavy energy to it. Like you'd want to open the windows and the curtains, get the light in, get the air in, refresh everything. Or if somebody had had an argument in a room and you had not been in that room and then you walked into the room, you probably would know there was an argument that had just happened. Like you could
Mhm.
feel the energetic weight
Yeah.
of that experience of that situation. So, or sometimes even a positive thing, if you're sitting in the living room in the sofa and your back is toward the doorway and somebody walks in, and you can't hear it, you often know they've walked in and you often know who's walked in. If it's your family and you're very familiar with the people, you can sense their energy before your eyes have confirmed visually who it is. So we're all aware of the energy, even though we weren't taught about it, we don't really know. So a lot of it is kind of explaining how that all works and how it affects us. So sometimes it's literally things in your home that affect you. Like, I don't know, you got a hand me down that you didn't really want and you felt really ashamed to give it up and you were stuck with it, so to speak.
Mhm.
So that energetic weight of that, every time you pass it or think about it, weighs on you. It affects you. So finding a way to make peace with it and find it a new home, releasing that allows for new energy to flow in, new opportunities. So they're little pieces like that that we connect to and yeah, and it's I think in our society we're so conditioned not to recognize the feeling portion of things because it's
Mhm.
messy, it's unclear, it's individual. What works for you
Yeah.
is different than what works for me. But understanding that you are, especially moms, are a beautiful creator, leader of the space, of the home, of the life. You are building such value and so many things that in that brings energy, just like you would if you hosted somebody, if you hosted a party in your home, you would think very much about the mood, the vibe, the energy, whichever word you want to use. You'd say, oh, when my guests come in, I want them to feel this way when they walk in. I'll put music on so it's got this kind of vibe. I want them to sit here. Like you would think about the whole flow of
Yeah.
energy for the evening because you would want to have a good experience. So, not learning not to tolerate less for yourself and that your home is to be your sanctuary for you and to slowly, like, I'm all about little changes, not big changes. These little changes that can help that flow and you have that experience and feel good in your own home.
This is really interesting to me because, when I think about our physical space, when I think about our environment, I think a lot of people sort of recognize that their environment is going to have an effect on how they're feeling. Like it's much, if you're already feeling stressed and overwhelmed and you're to the point of burnout, having, physical clutter everywhere
Mm,
is not going to be helpful for that, right? It's generally more helpful if you're in like this peaceful space that's maybe more organized and doesn't have that clutter and things like that. And also with you talk about like having this party and having people over and thinking about the vibe. It's interesting to me when I talk to a lot of people. One of the things that often comes up is people are so stressed about the appearance. They're so concerned about the appearance of their home. Is it clean? What are people gonna think when they come in? Am I gonna have toys everywhere? What's going on? And so they really, it creates a lot of stress and anxiety trying to,
yes.
get their home to be, physically the way that they want it to. And you're talking about a similar idea, but again, you're not talking about the physical things per se. You're talking just about the energy itself. So, but still this idea of how it is tied, like how our environments are ultimately tied to our overall mental and emotional well-being.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna add, as the, like, leader of our homes, people really take their cues from us. So, you know how what do they say? When you're flying on an airplane and there's turbulence, you look at the flight attendants. If they're freaking out, it's time to freak out. If they're not freaking out, you kinda just settle in and wait for it to be over. Same kind of idea, like, if somebody's coming over to your house and it's a little bit of a mess, if you're really stressed about it, they're gonna probably be stressed about it, but if you go, "No, I have this beautiful, loving home, I work really hard. Okay, it's a mess now, but guess what? If I clean it up, my kids will make it a mess in 5 minutes, I'll clean up at the end of the day." And go
Right.
with it. Most people probably wouldn't even notice, or they'll recognize that their house is like that too.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely something I know I personally have had to, check in with myself about that. I was the same way, always cleaning my house, always making it try to be as perfect as I could before people came over, and then it's kinda like that's just a stressful thing. And what is even the
Oof.
point? Because it's going to be messy again in 5 minutes, right? So now I've learned I sort of clean up, the key areas that the people are going to be in, and it not making it perfect, but just good enough. And then save the real cleaning for
Right.
after the mess is made. It's amazing how much stress that releases when
Oh,
you sort
so
of take
much.
that pressure off yourself.
Yes.
So when so sticking with this, topic about our physical space and how it affects our emotional state, I'm wondering what are some ways that moms can create this more supportive energy in their home when they say don't live alone, they can't control everything. I mean, to your point, you say you try to clean up, your kids are going to make it a mess in 5 minutes. Those are things that maybe are outside of our control. Husband leaving dishes in the sink, whatever it might be. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I have a few because I love talking about this, but my top 3 for every home that comes up are lighting. So often the homes that we live in are not homes we built ourselves, but we're stewards of these homes and they come with the lighting. So that's not always to our benefit, and that can be a little change that makes a big difference. So lower lighting in the evenings or brighter light around your desk area where in the kitchen or wherever you're working. So thinking about how a little tweak of lighting could better support you can often help everyone, whether it's conversations flowing or relaxing a little more in the evening or whatever it is. So looking at your lighting. Second is air. I like to open the windows at least once a day, every day, no matter what, to get that airflow. But if you can't, thinking about refreshing it maybe with a essential oil spray or lighting, if you have a few minutes, lighting a candle that you enjoy, somehow changing in energy work, they call it the frequency of the air, actually can raise that vibration and then it feels better. So thinking about how you can refresh the air, because that's right, the atmosphere everyone in your
Mhm.
home is operating out of.
Yeah.
And then lastly is nature. We all feel refreshed when we're in nature, and we can't always, with busy schedules especially, get out all the time. So, how can you bring that in? I often tell my clients to think about their favorite sense. My favorite sense is my sense of sight. So, I actually have a lot of prints of like mountains and things up. You could actually bring in a vase full of flowers or something. If you like sound, you could play nature sounds in the background. It's like you almost don't notice it, but it kind of like, oh, this is really nice atmosphere, like birds chirping
Mhm.
or something.
Mhm.
Or if it's a smell, again, if the kids aren't too little, candles. So thinking of little ways that you can like tweak this space and make it at the risk of say luxurious, it feels luxurious in the beginning, but how can you make it more yours and soothe your nervous system and feel good about it? And then lead from this place of, okay, I'm not frazzled and completely out. Look, I have this beautiful home. Use that, that starts that appreciation train and you kind of go from there.
Well, and as I'm listening to you talk, one of the things that I'm thinking about is, we live in different locations. We live in different areas, and I live in central New York, and so things like this, being outside now that we're in spring and weather's getting nicer and being outside just feels wonderful. But unfortunately, in the winter, it can be really tricky. Sometimes it's very cold, it's very snowy. People notice a change in their mental and emotional state just from, the
Mhm.
darkness and all of these things. And so, this idea of opening windows and getting out in nature, I mean, I feel like for people around here, at least during that time of year, might have a bit of a harder time with that. Not that they can't do it, but it's not as you're not feeling as motivated to open a window when it's like 0 degrees
Right.
outside, right? But it sounds like even in those situations, there are other things you could still do, not just with the lighting, but even you talked about like hanging up pictures and doing things that way just to sort of, making these changes in your environment within, really what you do have control over.
Exactly, and what you feel calming. I once talked to a woman who, for her, it was calm to have, like, paintings everywhere on the wall. They were completely covered. That would make me really uncomfortable. I need some more space, but that
Mhm.
made her comfortable. So kind of taking a minute and thinking, "Okay," and you don't have to make all the changes right away, but how can you support yourself and therefore your family in making this environment not something that just demands work from you or tasks from you, but that supports you and feels like a place you can be yourself and be calm and supported yourself.
Okay, okay, great. Well, so in addition to, these changes that we can make with our environment, I'm curious to hear more, just to kind of go back a little bit to what you were talking about, other things that these moms can do for themselves to help when they're feeling especially burned out. You had mentioned these energy flow states, and I'm just curious about, so for starters, what would be some signs that a mom is maybe working against her energy? And then also, what's maybe one strategy, one 5-minute reset, one thing that they could relatively easily do to help with that?
Yeah. Well, I think this goes back to caring about how you feel. So if you feel like you're pushing or you're frustrated and that's where you're operating from in that moment, you're fighting, right? You feel like you're pedaling upstream and not downstream. You're going against your energy. So that's the first sign. And then it's learning to take a break and saying, okay, I'm going to invest the next 1 to 5 minutes in my energy so I can get back to operating from a good place and feel good and get more things done. And then I used to call it an energy menu. I have very little bandwidth for thinking during the week because there's so
Mhm.
much to do. So I think it's really helpful if you just sit down and you can journal once and write, okay, these are little activities that help me feel better. Whether it's going for a walk, for me, it's reading for 5 minutes or journaling for 5 minutes, or what's a little task that I can do if you want to listen to a meditation or just sit outside with a cup of tea, something where it feels like this is again where we always feel like a break has to be this extended thing. But if you can just take 5 minutes and focus your energy and gather it all back and center yourself and feel good, and then operate from there. So make your energy menu. And when you're feeling frazzled, go there and say, okay, that's something I can do right now. Let everybody know I'm just going to be 5 minutes. I need my 5 minutes and I'll be back. And it, it helps a lot.
Okay, okay. Well, and I imagine that these are all things, all these strategies and ideas are probably things that you talk about, in your book. You had mentioned that you wrote this book, Make Ease Your Vibe. Um, did I get that right? The name of the
You
book?
did. Yes, that's
Okay.
it. I wrote
Okay.
it after the first 3 years of kind of personal development work. So it was my life doesn't really look much different now on the outside than it did before COVID, but it feels like I did a 180. I feel so
Okay.
much better about who I am and how I lead my family and live my life. And when I figured out all these little strategies, I was like, I gotta tell it somebody. So I wrote it down in a book
So
because
can you
I didn't know. And I was like, how can that's not fair, you know? There's just little things you can do and it makes such a difference about how you feel about yourself.
Well, so do you mind just telling us, like, a little bit more about your book? I mean, so you wrote it, you said around the time of COVID, just trying to share these things. Well, like, what other things might people find in your book? Like, what is the book really about?
Yeah. So the title Make Easier Vibe is the idea that you can bring ease into your everyday, that it's not just something you do on vacation, but that or once in a while when you get to savor it, but that it's this idea of having that flow and having control over feeling good. And so it goes into this, it has kind of three sections. Mindset. So how can you make that mindset shift? For me, I had a lot of negative self-talk.
Mhm.
And so learning that even if you can't change your first thought, you can change your second thought and you could slowly kind of retrain your brain and get off that thought train onto a new one. And when you are not negative and putting yourself down all the time, you naturally rise
Mhm.
up and that makes a lot of things easier too. So this mindset of how I saw myself and shifting all that negative self-talk. And then it was the energy piece. I had no clue how energy worked and how it worked, but it also goes into some of the like law of attraction stuff and how that works and how we are magnets energetically for what is in our lives and how it reflects back to us. That really also helped me with communication with others. And when something maybe not so nice was kind of thrown at me, then I could go, okay, wait a second, not personal. This is a lesson. What's it
Mhm.
reflecting? What am I feeling that's bringing this into my world? And that allowed me to continue to grow and ease everything. And then the last thing was time, learning about how time is a human construct and these conditions that we put on it are not helpful and how can you switch that to be things that are helpful and that allow you to get more done more easily.
Okay, okay. Well, that sounds, I mean, really great. And when you talk about, the mindset piece, I mean, the mindset piece, especially like the first thing that really, well, you're talking about it, but also the first thing that stood out to me, I mean, I 100% agree with that, and I love that you're talking about this because one of the things that I think so many people really get stuck in with, when things are hard, when they are having difficult time, are the things that maybe feel outside of their control. And although there absolutely are certain things, I mean, COVID's a perfect example. Like that was not within our control,
Mm.
but how we experience it, how we cope with it, how we move through it, not only is really affected by that self-talk, right? Our perspective, how we're thinking about it, how we're viewing it, and also what are we doing with the things that we do have control over, right? And
Mhm.
so, because there are always things that we can do, there are things that we can change, choices that we can make, doesn't necessarily mean that we can just make a bad situation go away or that our feelings around that are not valid, but just
Mhm.
remembering that we there are things that we can do to influence our overall experience of that. And so I love that you are talking, not just about that, but then this other piece about the energy and then about the time, which, as I mentioned, I feel like the time itself is you're talking about it in a way that's maybe a little bit different than what a lot of other people are used to hearing. So that sounds really great. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, gladly.
So I'm wondering then, so people who do want to learn more about this, they want to learn more about you. Where can they go to do that, to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, thank you. Well, the book is available on Amazon, both the paperback and Kindle versions. My website is Delicious Ease, because that's what I wish for everyone and myself, some delicious ease. My podcast is Intuitive Wisdom, so there are weekly episodes out. And on the website, you can connect to all that, the book, the podcast, and my services for home clearings.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I will make sure that that information is in the show notes
Oh,
for
one
anybody.
more.
Oh,
Can I add to it?
of
Sorry.
course. Yeah.
I just remembered I created a quiz. If you're interested in learning more about how your home energy affects you, you can go to deliciousecom/quiz and take the quiz and learn little bits of how everything affects it. Asks you some questions.
Okay, great. And yes, and I'm actually looking right now at the list of links that you had sent me. And so the website, the book, the quiz, some social media, your podcast, I have all of that included for anybody who wants to find you. So, that will be in the show notes for anybody who wants to learn more about your work. So
Thanks.
before we do wrap up for today, I'm just wondering, I like to ask everybody if you could leave the listeners with one final message, one final piece of advice, what would it be?
Ooh, to be kind to yourself. You're doing an amazing job. You're doing a great job. I mean, it's really hard to see that when you're in it. But everything counts and everything matters. And if you're, just be kind to you. Yeah, just to be kind to yourself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing all this knowledge, talking to us a little bit about your story. I know that that is really helpful for people just knowing that there are other people out there also
Oh,
going
yes.
through some of these similar struggles. And again, just thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I know that, well, here we are talking about time. Time is
Mhm. Yeah.
valuable, and I really do appreciate it. And as always, for the moms who are listening, if you found any of this to be helpful, if any of these things resonated with you, please share this podcast with other moms that could use some additional support because we're all in this together.
Amen. Thank you so much.